Wow, what a fancy welcome there. Appreciate it, Greg. To start, obviously, Greg and his team and his office has been really unique. This spring, I have been in the SEC for 9 seasons now, but this spring, getting able to sit in those head coaching meetings and learn from Greg and his staff and all that they put into not only for our coaching staff, but for our players in this league. So just really admire Greg and his staff, or Greg for his leadership and what he does for this conference and for college football. So definitely wanted to tell him thank you. And then I think, having been at a lot of different places and having been at a place that had a lot of success in this league, I think when you start looking at programs, I think vertical alignment is so important. And what I mean by that, our chancellor, Glenn Boyce, at Ole Miss, who's an Ole Miss grad, who was a former high school football coach, but his investment into athletics and into our athletic director, Keith Carter, is something that's been remarkable, that's really put us where we're at right now. So really, really thankful for Glenn Boyce, our chancellor, and Keith Carter, our athletic director, who also played at Ole Miss. It's really cool for both your bosses, to have been there and have played there. It really helps from a recruiting standpoint because that investment is just completely different. So we definitely would not be where we're at as a university right now and as an athletic program at Ole Miss without Glenn and Keith working side by side. And they embody everything Ole Miss is about. And our program sees their leadership come through it, but also our university. So really, really appreciative of those two. And that kind of takes me to Oxford, to Ole Miss. It was a unique decision for us to leave Tuscaloosa to go to Oxford. Now, strictly a family decision. And it feels like, it was yesterday when that occurred, over 3.5 years ago. But the people there have embraced us. We've got family there. We've got a lot of cousins there and all that. But the people and the quality of the people within that place and the community and how they embrace the school and our students, the way they impact the environment, not only at home games, but on a day-to-day, is something really, really remarkable that makes Ole Miss such a special place. So really appreciative to our students and to the community and the involvement of not only my family, but our program and our players. And I think if you come to Oxford and you come to a game, I think that's something that you definitely feel. I think obviously coming off the success of last year when you're going into an offseason, you look at those lessons, that you kind of learned throughout the season and towards the end of the season when it didn't go exactly how you saw it going, and you try to figure out, all right, how can we do it better? And that's what we've been doing. To me, since January 9th, it's how you evaluate the program and how do we do it better and work harder to take every step, all right, in every area of our program to improve. And I think that's year in and year out. I think within that, when you look at improvement and when you look at consistency and performance at other places and places that I've been, stability and schemes are so important to that. And so I was really, really, really glad that I was able to retain a lot of really good staff on both sides of the ball, really on all three phases. And when you look at offense and keeping Joe Judge, who's done an unbelievable job, bringing John David Baker back, who was the co-offensive coordinator in 2023, that obviously had been in the system, went off, got his teeth cut, right, called really good offenses at East Carolina, did a really good job to get him back, to be able to keep John Garrison as our offensive line coach, in a system that this will be the 7th year of that offensive system at Ole Miss. And then on the other side of the ball, to be able to keep B. Brown and that defensive staff and Randall Joyner and all those guys that have been with me for so long, to be able to keep that stability within that room, to be able to keep Coach Schoonover and our special teams. So we're able to keep stability, in all three phases, which I think is so important for development of your players. For freshmen to become sophomores and sophomores to become juniors, right, to learn more about those languages and those systems. So I was really fortunate to be able to keep and retain a lot of those guys. I think we've been really fortunate to add a lot of really, really good human beings into both sides of the ball. And it just so happened to be a very unique year to where a lot of these guys were former Ole Miss alum, and the Terrence Metcalfs of the world, and the Michael Spurlocks of the world, and the Moncriefs of the world, and the Marcus Woodsons of the world. And they've created so much value for our players, not only from a relationship standpoint, right, but the investment into them and making them better human beings has been really awesome to see, in the spring. So really appreciative of our staff and of our players of how they've worked since January the 9th. We still know that there's a lot of work to be done, We know every season is independent of their own, right? The legacy of last year's team is over, right? We can learn from that, obviously, moving forward, which we have all spring, and how do we do certain things better and consistently do it, on a more consistent basis. But this is a new group, and we added 50 new players into the spring, 29 via transfer portal, and then 22 from a high school standpoint, and added a couple more of those in May to get us to 51. So seeing that gel and come together has been really cool. And part of that reason, I think, is 3 of the guys that we brought here today, obviously in Trinidad and Kewan and Will. Not only, obviously, y'all know they're really good players. I'm not going to talk to you about that. Y'all already know that. But, rule number 1 in our program is be a good dude, and that ain't too hard. And I got 2 boys, like Greg talked about. And I hope one day my 2 boys are like one of these 3. They're tough. They're competitive. They love football. That's who we look for, right, from a recruiting standpoint that we want into our program. But more importantly, they're good people. They affect the people around them in a really, really positive manner. And so it's been really cool to see a lot of really good players, new players come in, right, but they're adapted to the guys that have been there, right, and understand the culture and the expectation, and for them to bring them with them has been really cool to see. So super excited y'all get to hang out with Kewan, Trinidad, and Will, because you'll see it when you're talking to them. Just awesome dudes, really good football players, but are a big part of the culture and where we're at. Because we got a lot of guys in our locker room like that, and it's really cool, and it's a really unique team. But we know every season brings challenges. Obviously, we're excited for the challenge. We know there's still a lot of work to do. Obviously, getting into camp here starting on August 6th, got to stay healthy and making sure we're getting guys in the right spot. I think it's really important for us this year from a personnel standpoint. I think we've created a lot of depth across the board on both sides of the ball to make sure we're using those pieces effectively and hold them accountable. But really like where we're at and just really appreciative of our staff and our players and their hard work and excited and playing a really, really good Louisville team to start the season at a neutral site. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Coach Golding. If you have a question, Tommy, Jalen, or Kylie will get a microphone to you. So we'll go ahead and go right over here in front of us, Coach, to the right-hand side.
Hey there, Pete. Sam Hutchins with the Clarion Ledger. Just now that you're mostly through your first offseason as a head coach, what's been the biggest difference between this offseason and the other ones at Ole Miss? And then what have you learned from that offseason as a head coach?
The first thing, obviously, in kind of the turmoil of everything going on and the retention of people and getting the thing fixed is, we had to hire a strength and conditioning coach because that's always the first thing you get back, January 9th from the game. They get a little bit of a break, but then you start ready to, for your off-season program. So bringing in Paul Constantine, number 1, who was our number 2 when I was at Alabama. He was the number 2 with the Falcons, so he came from, to us from Atlanta. And kind of switching that model in the weight room to a velocity-based training model, which is speed of the bar, and getting his staff. Because, I feel like the game's now kind of a blend between college and NFL. I don't think it's old school college, and it's not all the way to the NFL. So I thought it was really important to get an NFL mind that's been in this conference and had success, but also been at the NFL, and be really smart on how do we set up our offseason, not only in the weight room from a strength and conditioning training standpoint, but from a football intelligence and football school and the spring model and all that. To me, it's not exactly the same like it used to be based on how long the season is. So we kind of broke it up into 3 phases in the offseason, very much NFL, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And then we broke up the summer into block 1 and block 2. So different model for the players. To me, when you're recruiting, all these guys want to get developed at their craft. So we look at it every day. There's an opportunity for guys to come into our building and develop and improve at their craft. So in order to do that, you have to have something every day. And so, when our players are on campus, our coaches are on campus. And that's a model that I kind of changed from previous places that we had been. But I like the progression. I like where we're at. They're about to come up on a discretionary week next week, so we're going to give them a week off, and then they'll have a little OTA model prior to fall camp. But a little different structure than they were used to. But I'm just really, really big on the why, and as long as you can tell them why, and all right, this is the reason why, and I hear the results. I think they've seen the results throughout the spring in their bodies and their speed and their jumps and all those things from a weight room standpoint. And then I think it's allowed us for coaches to really slow down the install, to really be able to teach these 50 new guys that we got coming in that, now it's not, hey, I hope they get it. You're investing a lot into these guys. right, in order to play in the fall. And we got to make sure that we're teaching it the right way and the right progression. So that definitely changed it up, but, obviously the principles are still the same as the foundation of strength and then conditioning and football intelligence and then getting into our player run model.
Okay, we'll go in the section in front of me about 4 rows back.
Pete, Caleb Saylor, Super Talk, Mississippi. You spoke about how you've made some changes within the program, but going from defensive coordinator to head coach, how have you changed?
Well, I'm a little skinnier. Obviously, when you're responsible for a side of the ball, you run it like it's your team. And so no different than a defensive unit meeting, right? There's things that you believe in that you want to make sure that you get across, but you also have really good other defensive coaches that you have to allow to coach. And so, when I made the transition and I knew I was still going to call the defense by talking to other people, and that's really the only reason that was keeping me from taking a head job was I loved being a coordinator, was that I was going to hire guys that have to do all the head coach bullshit that I don't enjoy doing to where I can still focus on coaching football and being around our guys. And so part of the staff build of the Tom Lukes of the world and the Todd Cooley's of the world, right, and the Austin Thomases of the world, those guys around me are for that they handle all that crap, right, and they keep it off of my desk so that we can focus on still recruiting really good players and coaching good football. And so, that piece to me was really, really important. So your staff meeting is a little bigger than your unit meeting was, right? Your team meeting is a little bigger than your defensive unit meeting was, but the principles are the same. And I think it's unique for me. I'd already been there 3.5 years. They knew why I came, and they knew I was staying regardless of the role. So that buy-in's been a little different. But the delegation piece is something that has been a process for me throughout it. Really, all right, what are you going to take your hands off and let them go do their job and get the hell out of their way, right? Instead of not trying to micromanage everything and everything's got to be perfect and all those things. But probably the delegation component and then really deciding, no, hey, we're going to keep our focus here, right, and let Coach Cooley and let Tom Luke and let all those guys who are really good at their job handle that for you, which has been really, really awesome.
We're going to stay in the center aisle, right down third row. Microphone's right behind you.
Jake Thompson, Ole Miss Spirit. Pete right here. The school rolled out the Heisman campaign, I guess, for Trinidad and Kiwan yesterday. And just kind of what went into kind of combining the two and the process of putting it out so early at the start of the season.
Number one, I think, individual accolades, in my opinion, come from team success. And so that was a body of work, I think, from last season for both those guys to have really, really unique individual years because of a lot of our really, really good players around them. And I think they'd be the first ones to tell you that. But I do think, a lot of these guys are putting a lot in, and they're working extremely hard, and we demand a lot out of them, that there are some of these individual awards for them that are important to them. And it's not going to take away from what they need to do to win the football game. And I think 5 will be the first one to tell you that. If we need to throw it 60 times to win, let's throw it 60 times to win. And so, your concern always outside looking in is, hey, does this become a distraction? Those two are wired the right way, right? And so I'm not concerned with how they're going to practice and how they're going to prepare. They're going to do everything that they can to win the football game, and they know that's based on their preparation. And so I have zero concern of it affecting them and becoming an issue. So I'm all about putting people in position to have success, whatever that is. I feel like that's why they call us coach. It's no different for a player for the next 40 years of their life. It's our responsibility to educate them and equip them, right, to have success. And to me, this is just an avenue. You got 2 really elite players that are coming off really, really good years that still have a lot of really good players around them in the same system that are set up to have another really, really good year. And so I think it's part of our responsibility to put them in position to have as much success as they can, that being part of it.
We're going to go to the back over on the right-hand side, back section.
Good afternoon, Coach. Jacob Worthing, KRUI. As a defensive coach, which offensive concept is the hardest to stop today?
The one that works. No, it depends who you have. Obviously week to week, and that's what I love about this league. That's what I loved about growing up Division II and 1AA. You see so many different schemes week in and week out. So, to me, from a defensive standpoint, yeah, there's one thing of what are they doing and what do we need to do to take that away. But also you got to look at, all right, who do we have to take that away? And I think using your pieces effectively based on what they can do, not what they can't do, is so important. So, to answer that question, it's really going to depend upon, all right, it might be a fade depending on who's running that fade, right? It could be +1 run game by the quarterback, right, depending upon what coverage you're in, because they're playing with 11 and you're playing with 10. So that's all obviously based on, who they got and who we got. But normally when our dudes are better than theirs, it works out.
Okay, we're going to go straight in front of me.
Coach, Hunter Dawkins, the Gazebo Gazette, Super Talk News. Coach, you guys have been accused of tampering, and you got an NCAA investigation, at least from what I've heard. Talk to me about your feeling about tampering.
Yeah, I don't get into feelings, to be honest with you. We got a compliance department. They get paid to do their job. They do a really good job. So it's our responsibility to recruit really good players, right? Coach them extremely hard, get them ready to win football games. So we're going to continue to recruit really good players. That's both in the high school market and in the portal market. And we'll continue to do it how we've done it.
Okay, we'll go in the center aisle again.
Pete, Michael Casa with the Daily Journal. This one might have a complicated answer, but what is your relationship like with Lane right now?
Look, I get this everywhere we go. So we're on our caravan tour right now with Ole Miss, and we go every Tuesday and Thursday and take a couple players and go around the country. So we go Q&A with everybody, so it's everybody tell me how you really feel about them. They're like this intimate, environment. But Lane and I are good. I did not know Coach Kiffin prior to taking the Ole Miss job. I think everybody just assumes Alabama. I wasn't at Alabama when Coach Kiffin was, So I didn't come to Ole Miss because of Coach Kiffin. I came to Ole Miss to be at Ole Miss to raise 3 kids. So, our relationship really grew in those 3.5 years, and he did a lot for me, and I was very, very appreciative of how he treated me and my family, and learned a lot from him. So I have no ill will towards Coach Kiffin. He texts me on a regular basis, and there's certain things that we'll talk about, and there's certain things that we don't talk about. He's very competitive, just like I'm very competitive. Right, and so obviously a lot of this went a different direction when now he had a new job with new responsibilities, and he's going to be super competitive to be the best that he can at that job, right, which is his job. And so I can separate the two. I know some people can't. I tell a lot of these people, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't care. All right, like I told an Ole Miss group the other day at 21, I said, all right, in 2021, if you said you could look in 2025, and you're about to be 11-1 and go to the playoff, would you take it if your coach was leaving? They're like, hell yeah. I was like, you would. Everybody won from it. It's okay. Keith, you made a great hire. You did a great job. Every place isn't for everybody. That's coaches, that's players, that's your job, that's everything. And that's okay, And so throughout the process, I'll be the first one to tell you, I told him I was thinking he was dumb if he was to leave. I wanted him to stay. That was a selfish decision because I love being the DC where I was at. Right? But he decided what was better for him and his family, and that's for him to decide. So I have no ill will towards him at all. All right? Wish him the best of luck. We play him like every other SEC team, and we're going to both show up and spot the ball and play. So I talk to him on a regular basis, but no ill will at all, right? And really appreciative of how he treated me and my family. And then this created an unbelievable opportunity for me as well on top that I really wasn't looking for, but so appreciative to have.
All right, we'll go over here to our left in the front row, Dan.
Hey, Pete. Dan Wolken, Yahoo Sports, right over here.
Yep.
Sorry to pick at this again, but how would you fix tampering, or is it something that cannot be fixed in this environment?
All right, let me put it to you this way, okay? It'd be, so obviously you're a reporter, right? Would you quit your job before interviewing for another job or being offered another job? No, nobody would. But we have a portal that you can go in with a do not contact. I'm going to quit my job where I'm getting paid, and I'm going to go in saying I need a new job, but nobody can call me to interview. What have we created? So we've created it on top of representation for these players, right? That it's their responsibility to make sure they get paid really well, and they also have opportunities. So by design, it's put a lot of people in bad positions. And let's not act like recruiting in college football for the last 100 years is the most moral thing, right, that's ever been existed. What are we talking about here? So I'm really not going to get into my feelings, and I know how I've been educated to answer this question, right? Does that make sense? It's where we have a great compliance department, right, and all those type of things. But no, the model obviously has been broken, and I'm all for everybody being on the same playing field and doing the same things. I get it. But I think that's in any job, right? Like coaches, we're under contract. You don't think other ADs are calling us during the year? Same ones that are bitching about all this stuff are the same ones calling coaches, right, to come to other schools, right, and everything. So it's everywhere. It's in every profession. So I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I'm not saying that at all, right? Does that make sense? So we go by then the rules of the program, right, and how the flow, just like when you're on the interstate and people are flying by you, what do you start doing? You're damn right you're going to get hit, right? Does that make sense? In this profession, you're going to get fired, right? So I'm not saying that, but I think there are a lot of people that are doing an unbelievable job, Greg being one, right, to make sure that, all right, everything's catching up. College football is constantly changing, all those type of things. So hopefully we'll all, decide on what's fair for everybody. Yep.
All right, we're going to go on the center lane. Barry, you're up.
Yeah, Barry Trammell, the Tulsa World. Sorry to get into a less interesting subject, but I've asked a lot of coaches 2 years into the new-look SEC, Oklahoma and Texas. They've all told me what the pros are. What are the cons of the SEC going to 16 teams with those two?
Us having to go to Austin and play Texas to Texas, that's a con. No, I think it's really, really good, to be honest with you. And I know you said look at the cons, but yeah, I mean, that's an incredibly tough place to play. We got them on our schedule this year. It's at Austin, obviously, extremely hard place to play. That's going to be a playoff mentality. We were fortunate enough, we did do that at Tuscaloosa one year, went down there and played Sark in his first year, so we've got a little experience down there. But they're two really good football teams, right, and tough places to play that have traditions at the school and from a recruiting standpoint are in fertile areas that now that's your competition. And so even from a recruiting standpoint now, like they come to Mississippi recruit, right? We're battling them in Mississippi on recruits being in Austin, So I tell Sark all the time, like, dude, you got plenty of guys in Texas. Like, get out of our state, right? But they're everywhere. So two really good competitors. I think Venables and Sark do an amazing job and really good traditions. So just two other top 10 opponents, right, that you've added in your conference that you're going to play. So you be ready to go. So, I don't have anything negative about it. Sorry not to be able to do that. But I would just say the quality of the opponent and the competition within a recruiting standpoint on top of it. Now, with them being in the SEC, you can't use the league versus the other league as far as the development of positions, right, and increasing the value of their first contract in the NFL.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. We'll start over here on the left-hand side.
Hey, Coach. Steve Moulton, 97.7 ESPN The Zone out of Huntsville, Alabama. The defensive side of the ball in particular, how good do you think your defense can be this fall, Coach?
I think we're as talented as a defense that I've been around in a long time. And hopefully I felt like we learned some things off of last year's teams of where to focus on in the portal and making sure we added some older veteran guys, and that was up front. I really felt like we didn't have enough depth on the defensive line, especially inside last year, to stay fresh late in games, and I felt like that really hurt. And then in the back end, the size, speed in the back end with experience within this league was really important to me because I felt like we had to get a lot better in the back end collectively across the board to win the games that you were supposed to. So the talent is there. The experience is there. We didn't bring guys in that weren't starters from where they were at. It's just the familiarity of our system from a communication standpoint. And like I was telling somebody the other day, I know they're really good players. I've watched them on tape. They've been really successful at other really good programs. But, like, you really don't know how they're going to respond to adversity because you've never been through it with them yet. And so that's the biggest thing for me as a coach is like, all right, when we get punched in the face and we're gonna, like, how are you going to respond just because you hadn't done that yet with this group? And so obviously you try to create those scenarios in the offseason as much as you can, but that's not real until it's the fourth quarter and you're down one possession. Like, all right, you look up, it's like, all right, man, what you got? So, but I think they're wired the right way. I love how they work. I think they enjoy playing for each other, which is not normal. I think to me the strength of the Warrior is the Warrior next to him. And everybody doesn't believe in that, but I think this group does. I like the depth. I like the mentality, but that's got to correlate to Saturdays, to getting off of blocks and tackling guys and finishing plays and communicating really well. But definitely have a high ceiling, and I think has the ability to be better and more talented than the 24 defense was.
Okay, we'll take one final question in the section in front of us on the aisle.
Hey, Pete, Nick Douglas with Elite Media Network. There was a lot of continuity with you taking on the role, going right into the CFP, retaining a lot of the staff, retaining the star players. From a cultural standpoint, what has shifted now that you're head coach?
And, you know, I think the focus on other things, you know, like to me, from a football standpoint, I think we've done football pretty well there the last 3 years. I mean, we've had a 3-year stretch. We've won at least 10 games, first time in the history of the program. And so, you know, I think when you know you're going to be somewhere, you start looking at everything else, and you got time to kind of sit back and analyze the program. So, you know, for me, it was everything else to develop players off the field. In our lab program, our Life After Ball, and our Frenzy sessions, right, that we outsource through SHEP, and our Future 40 program, and all those other development components that are so important for 99% of these guys that might not have the chance to be able to play on Sundays. And even for that, having been a part of, in my opinion, one of the best coaches to ever do it, like, you know, the one thing that stuck with me is like, look, man, elite programs aren't designed for when they got cleats on. Elite programs are designed for when they take them cleats off. And are they a better dude? Are they a better husband? Are they a better father? Do they have a job making a certain amount of money that they wouldn't have had and wouldn't have made if they didn't go to Ole Miss? If I can't do that for them, then we're not an elite program. And that's what I'm so appreciative about of Glenn Boyce and of Keith Carter, right, and of the Walker Jones and the collective and everybody's support to go all in to give us everything that we need to be as successful as we want to be. And now when you keep stability in schemes and you go recruit really good players and you hold them accountable, the winning takes care of itself.
Coach Golding, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Appreciate it. Howdy-toddy.